Should you buy a new lens for your camera? What if I told you this new low-light Viltrox portrait lens is only 180 bucks? I'm gonna test it out and show you guys how this works. Tech it before you wreck it. What's up, geeks? I'm Kirk. Here's the thing. If you have a camera with interchangeable lenses, a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, you probably need to buy a new lens. And I know what you're thinking. I already have a lens. It came with the camera. Why do I need another lens? Well, you probably have a lens like this. This is called a kit lens. This is the one that came with my Sony camera, and they're good enough at most things, but not usually great at anything. So for example, this lens, it's a good one. It's mostly plastic, so it's pretty lightweight, which is good and bad. It zooms in, so you can get wide angle shots. You can zoom in as well. It doesn't have a great aperture setting, which means it doesn't do great in low light situations. Again, it does a good enough job taking pictures and video for most situations, but it's not really great at anything. That's not a bad thing. That's what these are designed for. But when you start taking more photos and more video, it's probably time to upgrade. So that's why I was excited to check out this from a company called Viltrox. So it doesn't zoom. It's called a fixed lens. It's locked in at 35mm, which isn't wide angle, but not telephoto. It's kind of a perfect lens for portrait photography, pictures of people. But most importantly, it has a 1.7 aperture setting. What that means is that the aperture is low, letting in more light. So it takes better pictures, theoretically, in low light situations. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna show you what comes inside the box with the new Viltrox. Then I'll explain what exactly aperture means, why that 1.7 number is so important, and the two things it can do for you when taking photos and shooting video. And then, most importantly, if you stay to the B side of this video, I'll show you some pictures and video that I shot with this lens. I'll put them side by side with my kit lens so you guys can see the difference. Without further ado, let's get over to the table and get this Viltrox lens unboxed. So here it is. Here's the box. You can see it's a simple white box, has a picture of the lens on the front, and you can see it's called the AF35 1.7E. So it's designed for the E mount, which is the mount on most Sony mirrorless cameras from Viltrox. It's a 35mm prime lens. That means it's a fixed zoom, and it's a 1.7 aperture lens, that f-stop, which is so important. On the other side, you've got the same thing. We'll flip it over to the bottom. You've got some barcodes and some basic information, and that is about it. So let's get this box opened up. Okay, opening up the lid, and looks like we've got an instruction manual pamphlet on the top, although not really an instruction manual. It's basically just a card with a QR code so you can check out the instruction manual. You've got a pretty typical warranty card with another QR code, but also a way to fill this out and file for that warranty. This looks like a soft pouch. Always nice to see these included with the lenses. Just a great way to store the lens when you're not using it, to prevent it from getting damaged. A very cheap pouch, but again, it's nice to have this included. This lens is in here tight, trying to shake this out of the box, which is good. You've got your silica gel to keep things dry, but here is the lens itself. But otherwise, that's pretty much it. Looks like we have a quality control piece of paper here. Looks like this one passed, so that's good. But that's it. Let's just check out the lens. Pulling off the paper, getting this thing out, and there it is. You know what? It's a pretty small lens, but it's got some decent weight to it. Feels like it's really well built. Feels like it's got some metal in here, and you've got a lens hood that's on it. Looks like this is included, which is nice. A nice lens hood to block some of that sunlight. Always great to have that included in the box with the lens itself. There's your markings. You've got a little ring, a focus ring around the edges. There's your lens cap. There's the glass. Pretty cool, nice looking lens. You can see some of the specs on the front there. It's a AF 35mm 1.7. On the back, we've got the cover for the side that's going to attach the camera itself. You can see it has that Viltrox logo. It says E on there because it is an E mount for a Sony camera. You've got your pin connection so it can talk to the camera. And look at that, little USB-C port. That is actually designed so you can upgrade, believe it or not, the software inside the lens. Great to have that just in case they create software improvements after they sell you the lens. Here's my Sony camera. Let me just show you popping this lens on how it works. As you probably know, you line up the little dots, you place the lens inside, and then you turn it clockwise and it should click right in. And you can see size-wise, it's not super huge. It's actually a pretty small lens. If you add that hood, it's going to give it a little bit more size. But, you know, it's got some weight. It doesn't feel front heavy on the camera, at least initially speaking when I first test this out. I'm pretty happy with the way it feels. It's got the feel of a high quality
quality lens. Hard to believe this thing is under $200. Okay, let me give you a very basic explanation of what that f-stop number 1.7 means and what the aperture is. I'm using some cool diagrams from the YouTube page Apple Apps, linked down in the description if you want a deeper dive. So essentially, when the f-stop number is lower, the aperture can open up larger, which means it can let more light into the sensor. That means that you get better photos and video in low light situations. It also means you can get a better bokeh effect. What is that? Well, you'd know it if you saw it. It's that cool look where the background is nice and blurry, out of focus, and the foreground, the subject, is in a nice sharp focus. With a lower f-stop, you can get a better bokeh effect. And they call this a fast lens because since the aperture is open so much, the shutter can open and close faster because it doesn't need to let as much light in since the aperture is wide open. Okay, time for a demo. On the left, you've got the Viltrox lens. On the right, you've got my Sony kit lens. And my Sony kit lens only goes down to an f-stop of 3.5, whereas that Viltrox lens is 1.7. And you can see it. It's just a brighter image on the left. The background's brighter, my face is brighter. The lighting conditions are exactly the same. They're pretty low light conditions. You'll also notice the bokeh effect. On the Sony lens, you'll see how in focus those cabinets are behind me, but you go over to the Viltrox lens and you get that cool soft focus in the background that people just love. And finally, let's talk about the features and what you get from more light coming into the lens. On the Sony lens, you'll notice that my features are a little muddy when you zoom in, but if you go over to the Viltrox lens, you're going to see there's a lot more sharper detail and features on my face because you've got more light coming into the lens. Okay, here's a still photo demo in a very dim situation with just a simple lamp off to the left of this Chick-fil-A bottle. Again, the Viltrox is on the left, the kit lens is on the right, and I gotta be honest, the kit lens did a lot better than I expected in this low light situation, but take a look at the background, and you can see with the 1.7 aperture on the left, the f-stop of 1.7, the background is way out of focus, and look at the countertop. You can see as that countertop comes forward, it locks into focus of that bottle. That's the different look you're gonna get with a faster lens that operates better in low light. That's the difference you'll get, I think, and I don't know what you guys think, but I think it just looks like a more professional, sharp photo.
I gotta tell you, I'm pretty impressed. What do you guys think of those samples that I showed you there? I mean, for under $200, this lens I think is performing as well as a $400 portrait lens. You can spend a lot more than that if you want. Certainly those lenses exist, but for people who want a good lens but don't want to spend a lot of money, I think this lens from Viltrox is actually a pretty good option. So let me know, are you shopping for a lens? What's your favorite lens? Which one do you use the most? I'm always curious about that for people. Comment below, let me know. I read every single comment. I'll comment back. And if you're interested in this Viltrox lens, 180 bucks, I'm gonna throw some links down in the description so you can find out where you can buy it, get some more information. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I've got more cool geeky videos coming your way. Tech it before you wreck it. I'm Kirk.